The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, May 7th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, it's Casual Friday, folks. Heather Parton, or Digby, from the blog Hullabaloo and Salon.com will be joining us. Also, in a slight format break, our second guest of the day will be attorney Steve Donziger. He has been under house arrest for over 300 days and is about to be prosecuted by a private law firm for withholding evidence, supposedly, about a scheme that led to Chevron's massive loss in a trial in Ecuador. If that sounds bizarre to you, it should. Meanwhile, amidst the Republican House leadership self-decapitation, a scramble for power, and a realignment to fealty for Trump. New study shows that more than 900,000 people died of COVID in the United States. Meanwhile, April's jobs numbers disappoint. EU is ready to discuss patent waivers, but apparently Merkel rejects the idea. At least 25 are killed in a police raid in one of Rio's largest favelas. 4 years after executing, or I should say 4 years after Arkansas executed Letta Lee, a different man's DNA is found on the murder weapon. Joe Biden scraps the Trump plan to force immigrants to submit to bio-identifiers. And new polls show that Biden's $1.8 trillion American Family Plan has 60% support. Philly Police Union appears to be getting members to register as Democrats to target reformer DA Larry Krasner. All this and more on today's program. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this, this last day of the week. Here with me, of course, Emma Vigeland. Hello, Emma.
You didn't even ask me yet.
That's right. I'm not going to.
The change-up. Got her swinging.
I got her swinging on that.
Me, yeah.
Yeah, yesterday you complained that every day I ask you how you're doing. Today I'm just like, I'm going to assume well.
It wasn't a complaint, more just, like some sort of remark, passive-aggressive remark, probably, right?
I guess.
But
I don't know.
You threw the change-up on me. You're acting like Matt's cousin, Jay Flaw.
There you go.
Star closer for the Orioles.
There you go. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The Norfolk Tides, but yep.
Oh, okay.
So it is Casual Friday. As you can see, I'm wearing my soft-colored collared shirt for the day. I got to get a new one. I realize that's happening. I don't know. I'm going to have to...
What color do you think you'll go with?
Blue. I just got to get a different blue one.
Why not a white polo?
No, I don't. That's not happening.
You should start dressing like the 80s, like some very strange... Because I feel like our clicks would go up a lot if you became the 80s guy.
I mean, part of I would say a significant number of my clothes are actually from the 80s. I haven't quite, I haven't evolved.
Are you trying to say you should pop his collar, Matt?
Yeah, like big lapels and stuff like that. I think that would really kick up to another notch.
All right. Well, it's something I will contemplate. We got a lot of stuff to get to here. Thank you for joining us. And it is fascinating to watch the evolution of the debate about whether we should waive patents on the vaccines and their technology in which to develop. And we have gone from the initial things like it's not necessary to, well, it won't get relief quick enough, as if like you can't do two things simultaneously, like give vaccines and start to build the capacity to create vaccines 6 months down the road, 3 months down the road, 9 months down the road, whatever you choose. We also heard like it's impossible for these countries to develop a process of making sure that the vaccines are of a good quality.
As the Baltimore plant contaminated 15 million doses and also essentially slowed production in other countries who are using, AstraZeneca is very similar to the J&J one. They are having to do additional quality control because of the pristine United States facilities.
Right. I mean, the idea being that you can't have problems in the United States and you can't have success in other countries is just absurd. It's bizarre. It's completely unrelated to the question of IP. Like, you just simply create a mechanism to make that happen. And then, of course, the double-edged sword of, Pfizer telling its shareholders, hey, we're going to be doing booster shots probably. And then, well, all of a sudden, if you got a facility that's going to take 9 months to get online, well, that's going to fit in quite nicely with the need for booster shots.
And a reminder that they got to this point after millions of dollars in investment from the German government, and the other vaccines were invested in by the United States government.
Billions.
And now they've made billions and billions, like I think $23 billion, but that's not enough for the shareholders with not really much of their own investment at all.
Well, we haven't gotten to that argument yet, right? Because all of the arguments that we've heard them deploy have been about it's impractical, it's not going to help, it's unnecessary. None of it has been about what it's really been about, which Emma has just alluded to, which is we don't want to cut into our profits. Yeah. And remember, all of these vaccines, in one form or another, have received billions of dollars. Whether it's in the Pfizer-BioNTech, where $500 million came from the German government, but there was $1.5 billion promised up front. A pre-order from the U.S. government, whether the vaccine worked or not. I mean, that's a pretty nice sort of insurance policy there to go ahead and develop these. And the development of mRNA technology and all of these technologies have been a function of enormous government investment. But that's not even really the point, right? I mean, the point isn't whether the U.S. government and other governments have already invested in this stuff and should own part of it, although that's a separate argument, which I would also make. But now, at least, now that the Biden administration has been forced into announcing a commitment to waive the patents, and we'll see what the implications of that are. But now that they've been doing that, now we're seeing the sort of knock on a little bit more honest conversation about why folks were against the waiving of the patents. And here it is. I present to you Bloomberg News.
We have to be really careful with the language we use around this conversation. One thing the left has done has monopolized the moral high ground with a single perspective. And what it does not allow people to ask legitimate questions. And I think the starting position is not that the Democrats want to help low and middle income countries and the conservatives and Republicans do not. I don't see that. It's about how you help those countries. And that's the debate we need to have on a program like this. And when I hear you say things like Senator Warren would like the waiver...
Pause it for 1 second. So it's set up as if there is bullying from the left morally, because they're taking some type of moral high ground. But we really should be talking about how to do this. And in other words, there is no moral response to the idea that we should share vaccine technology with other countries. It's really just a question of like, well, how can we help these countries the best? But there is no one making the argument that we should stop at allowing these IP waivers. No one's making the argument we should allow the IP waivers and not give vaccines to these countries. No. In fact, we have already made a commitment to send 60 million doses to India. We should be sending as many doses as we can around the world. No one has any compunction with that. So it's not really a question of how. It's like, why would we constrain ourselves? Why wouldn't we throw the kitchen sink at this? But it is amazing how much they talk about this and never actually articulate what they say they can't say.
And that's such a key point, because they're not even saying that argument anymore.
That's what I'm saying.
Because they know, right, because they know it's so flimsy that, yeah, we can do both. We can give them vaccine doses now, and we can waive the IP so that there's mass production down the line.
Continue.
So Warren would like the waiver for IP. I think the worry that people have is that Senator Warren doesn't want it to stop there. She wants it to go further. Isn't that the real debate down in D.C. at the moment, that the freedoms people have lost, the freedom of movement, the freedom of speech, arguably, which is an argument going on down in D.C. at the moment? And if then we get into property rights, does it stop there, just in the crisis, or does it go further? Isn't that the ultimate concern right now?
That is not necessarily the immediate concern, but the ultimate concern. I think you could make potentially a pretty persuasive slippery slope argument about how far this goes and what the effect would be potentially on vaccine production for who knows if this is even going to be the last pandemic that I lived through. We don't know when the next time we're going to have such a worldwide effort to ramp up production of vaccines. So the long-term concerns are there. And when I say the moral arguments that have won the Biden administration over, to be clear, these are moral arguments, but they're not the only moral arguments involved in this. So that has been so far the winning moral argument in terms of winning over the Biden administration, which is in control of this. But it does raise a lot of questions going forward for the long term. But really, a lot of the conversation in Washington is more on the immediate threats. Even though there are concerns that mostly are being expressed on the right, a lot of, especially when you hear the Biden administration, a lot of the rhetoric around this is how to produce this vaccine right now as quickly as possible.
Yep.
They're complaining that's the only moral argument that's being presented.
And they're not presenting any alternate moral arguments because there isn't one.
Exactly.
But the long term, and let's be clear on what they mean by the long term and the slippery slope here. They are concerned, and they're not telling all of their concerns. The ones that they're expressing are, we don't know how this is going to impact vaccine production in the future. In other words, what's going to happen when we have all of this capacity to produce vaccines and we no longer can deploy the argument, they don't have the capacity to produce vaccines, why would we give them the IP? And not only just in general for vaccines for gosh knows what's going on, but we're not going to have the leverage to say this if there's another pandemic. I mean, literally their argument is, if we build vaccine creation production capacity, the pressure to give these other countries that cannot afford to develop, because look, there's just not other countries, or there's not as many other countries that can give 5 different companies $1 billion to go produce a vaccine and roll the dice.
And when they say a slippery slope argument, what they mean is it's a slippery slope towards that exact
That's what they're
thing
saying.
that you're saying, that there will be an understanding worldwide that vaccine production can be done quickly. And so he says this may not be the only pandemic that I lived through. That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. The fact that we